Welcome back. You're watching Indian Open right here on BloombergQuint Live. A quick glance across Asia then to tell you how we're set up for Open this morning. So we've got China trading under by just 0.25%, while Hong Kong trading with gains of about 0.5%. The SGX Nifty is pointing towards a positive start. Not a very strong one at that, but nonetheless a positive start. 12,330 has been scaled by the SGX Nifty. But lots of individual movers, Neeraj, to watch out for an intraday trade today. The key one being Infosys. Agam spoke a lot about how the stock is likely to react and what the consequences of the investigation and the clean sheet that they've got are. But clearly, it could be a big driver on the index as well today.
Yeah, let's see if the other IT stocks react accordingly.
We were watching out for the longest time was crossed 12,300, but at higher levels there was profit booking which kicked in. So for Nifty futures, which closed below the mark of 12,300, only 1% increase was seen in terms of open interest. Intraday, in fact, the open interest had gone up by as much as 10%. Bank Nifty, which gyrated almost 400 points in trade, closed off 250 points off the day's high, and there was sign of short covering seen for Bank Nifty futures as the open interest fell by nearly 10%. Remember, markets were trading in the positive territory, but India wicks did not correct as much on Friday. So wicks at levels of 14 and traders expecting wicks to be on the higher side in run up to the budget as well. And looking at the options data, if you look at the put call ratio across the series for Nifty, that fell to level of about 1.54 versus Thursday's closing of 1.58. In the second half of the session, there were signs of more call riding which came back into the system. So for this Thursday's expiry scheduled on January 16, maximum open interest on the call side is at the 12,300, which is a near-term strike now, and on the put side it is the 12,200 strike. So the range once again remains very, very narrow. I said there was call riding, so you did see strikes like 12,300 call, as well as out of the money strike like 12,500, 400 also witnessed some addition, while on the put side 200 and 300 put strikes saw some bit of writing. So the range, at least for this Thursday weekly expiry, will be 12,150 on the downside to about 12,400 on the upside. Very quickly then on the stock futures side, a lot of stocks moving around, and after a while you saw 7% gains coming in for Sun TV. Long positions were seen on the futures side. Cement stocks have been quite active. Ambuja Cement being one of them saw fresh long position. Z was the top loser on Nifty. Shorting was seen on the futures side, and you had Coal India which surged, and that stock also witnessed short covering on the future side. And even if you look at the FI data, we did get buying on the cash side. On index futures, there were more of long build-up. Nearly 4,500 contracts were added, while on the index option side, there were position taken across the board. But if you look at the net positioning, they've positioned more and put long, indicating they're hedging themselves on the downside, but they also feel downside could be unlimited because on the put short side, there is more positioning if you look at the FI data. With that, it's back to you guys.
Right, Tanami, thanks very much for that. The big stock in focus then. Infosys earnings meets estimates in the December quarter, and it raises the revenue growth guidance for FY20 to 10 to 10.5% from the earlier 9 to 10%. Aniket, Pande, he's the lead IT analyst at Prabhudas Lilladher. He's joining us right now on the phone line to tell us what he makes out of the numbers and what they suggest for the rest of the sector. Aniket, thanks very much for taking out the time. Obviously, the guidance getting upped is a big positive. Do you believe that it is possible now, and also the fact that the overhang with regards to the investigation now is out of the way? Do you feel that this stock, or rather Infosys as a whole, can do much better than its peers going forward? And the kind of commentary that came out from management as well.
Hi, yeah. So basically a clean sheet by the independent agency has rested the case of whistleblower issues. So Infosys this time reported a narrow miss on revenues and margin, but steady tailwinds of around 1.8 billion, renewal being around 68% and new net deal wins of about 35% is impressive. So basically, we continue to believe that headwinds in retail and BFSI and flattish new deal wins for next since last 9-month FY20 would restrict revenue growth to high single digit. However, as compared to TCS, Infosys will deliver superior organic growth in FY20. So we have estimated around 7.8 organic growth for Infosys in FY20 as compared to TCS organic growth of around 6.9% in FY20. So Infosys deal pipeline with wallet share gains provides industry-leading revenue growth visibility in FY21 also. We believe deals like Verizon and Starter as paramount for double-digit revenue growth going forward in FY21 and 22. So going forward with steady revenue momentum, we also expect Infosys margin improvement to be aided by on-site utilization, improving on-site offshore mix, and there would be a rationalization of subcon cost. So we expect margin to stay in a narrow range of around 25% in FY21 and FY22.
All right. Aniket, there is this valuation discount that's there between Infosys and TCS.
Yes.
Post this, do you expect that to narrow down significantly?
Yeah, so basically Infosys stock price is still down 10% since the whistleblower allegation took place. So Infosys is currently trading at around 17x and 15.5x FY21 and FY22 multiple, which is 28% discount to TCS multiple. With a clean sheet, strong deal pipeline and margin improvement levers, we expect that discount to narrow down to 20%. So I believe that Infosys should settled around 18p 18 1-year forward P. So that would be a price at around 780 rupees.
So what kind of upsides, Aniket, in the near term would you reckon? Do you think there will be a flash reaction today, or do you think people will get a chance to make fresh investments today?
So I believe that Infosys should rally more 5% for here to settle at a 18p multiple. So 18p 1-year forward multiple. So if stock opens flat, one should try to enter in.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Please make your point.
Because the ADR has just closed around 1.5% on Friday.
Yeah, it started off very well, but closed about 1.5%. Aniket is right there. But great, Aniket, good having you. Thank you so much for taking the time out and giving us that quick perspective. Avinash, Gorakshakar, such an important stock, and therefore to you as well. Would you go out and buy Infosys today if it starts over a percent and a half higher?
I think Neeraj, numbers are definitely much better than at least street estimates, but the margins were definitely a tad lower than what the street expected. So I would believe that from a longer term perspective, the valuation discount between Infosys and TCS could narrow down, and I would not be surprised that the Jan to March quarter could be a much more stronger quarter. Our sense is that somebody who wants to take a positional kind of view on a frontline IT name, then I think Infosys presents a fairly good risk reward compared to maybe an HCL Tech or a TCS, which obviously trades at a significant premium. So I think clearly the management has now put down the whistleblower issue, which also puts down the rest, the corporate governance issue. So I think definitely stock should open positive today, and I think over the next 6 to 12 months, hopefully as the management progresses of increasing the digital revenue, I would believe that we could even see margins improving beyond 22%.
Okay. That's Infosys for you. So that's going to be the #1 stock in focus as we set up for trade this morning. From the broader markets, all right, before I go there, let me just also look at Yes Bank, since we're talking about index stocks. They've rejected one big fundraising offer. They're looking at other avenues to raise 10,000 crores. It's getting very difficult at this point.
No, I think Devina, the board meeting which concluded last week, I think did not finalize any fundraising at all, and I think the markets would definitely be disappointed. As far as the funding is concerned, I think they are now approaching the deadline which the management had earlier mentioned, that by March 20, if they are not able to raise money, it could obviously put a lot of pressure on their on the financials, and obviously the bank requires capital funding urgently. So I would believe that in the near term, the stock is just not going to go anywhere until they get clarity as to when this fundraising would actually happen. The markets would obviously like to know if it at all happens, then at what price it happens, because obviously at these levels, the markets are discounting that the book value dilution could be quite steep, and that is definitely not good for the stock in the near term.
Yeah, well, we'll watch out for Yes Bank too. That will be a part of one of the key stocks in news today, and then there will be some more. So let me go across to our research team to get in a sense of the key stocks in news. There's of course other names in terms of brokerage up initiations that have happened. There's insurance data which needs to be dissected. So it's a packed house. Nikki, Forum, Agam, as well as Shefali join in for all of that. All of you, good morning. Nikki, let's start off with the key stocks in news first.
Yeah, not many, 5 of them. I'll start off with the results first. Bad set of numbers rather reported supported by a steel strip wheels. If you look at the top line growth out there, that's where the disappointer has crept in. A 29% downtick YOY for this company, which has percolated down on the operational performance of the company. EBITDA, for that matter, was also dipped by 31%, in effect to which margins, however, remain stable on account of the equal decline that we've seen both in top line as well as the bottom line, the operational performance. The other stock that we're looking at would be Yes Bank. Now, the board said that it's going to be looking into the allegation raised by Uttam Prakash Agarwal in his resignation letter. Apart from that, in the outcome of the board meeting, the board has now gone ahead and rejected Arvind Singh Bridge $1.2 billion offer, and it said that it's going to be discussing the City Act's holding $500 million offer in the subsequent meetings. And separately, the main development also remains that it's going to be raising in funds to an extent of 10,000 crore via QIP option. Edelweiss Financial Services, where the stock took a hit of as much as 9.5% in trade in the previous session's trade. Now the company has come out and said that it has received communication from ED for dealing with Capstone Forex, but then it's also clarified and said that it has no transaction with this company. The other development that we're looking at would be Tata Steel, where the Netherlands arm has gone ahead and executed the agreement for refinancing of its bank debt. Well, the impact would be nominal as such, but it's a positive development, and also it's just now the execution which per se has taken place for this counter. And last on the list, we're looking at Hudco, where one of its borrowing agency with principal outstanding of around 726 crore, that has been cleared on Jan 9. So some amount of positive traction on this one as well.
Okay, we'll watch out for some of these Edelweiss being a key one to monitor today, as also some of the other insurance companies forum. How did the data look like?
Well, this was the second consecutive month of strong individual AP growth for life insurers. The industry grew at about 16%, LIC grew at about 13%, while the private players witnessed a 17% growth in the individual AP. Some of the top gainers last month were India First Life Insurance, Canara HSBC OBC and Hdfc Life, which all saw a growth of more than 45%. This was followed by Tata AIA Life Insurance, Kotak Mahindra Life and Max Life Insurance, which all registered a growth of 23%. Now, how the other larger players fared. So LIC, ICICI Prudential growth stood at 11%. SBI Life Insurance reported a 17% growth, and LIC's growth stood at about 13%. Now, looking at the market share, again, the private players continued to gain market share on the back of LIC at the cost of LIC. Now, the market share for LIC stood at about 35%, and amongst the private players, SBI Life continued to gain market share about 19%. Looking at some of the factors which drove growth for these players, for HDFC Life, the growth in Sanchay Par Advantage product was something which led to the growth for the company. For ICICI Prudential, the larger sales and savings product is what led to the growth. SBI Life, again, the larger distribution channel which the company has continues to benefit SBI Life. For LIC, the sales push of relaunched products is something which drove growth for the company.
Okay, we'll watch out for some of these, and pretty strong growth for HDFC Life in particular. Let's wait and watch how that one reacts, if at all. It's an expensive stock. We'll ask Avinash about it. Avenue Supermarts, again an expensive stock, but Agam, yet another quarter of bottom line numbers looking pretty robust.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 24% growth in the top line. We've seen margin expansion of around 50 basis points in terms of operating margins. Your net profit rose 53%, partly because of, well, higher margins and partly because of the advantages coming out with respect to corporate taxation. Of course, there was also gross margins which aided this expansion in margins. The company's added about 7 stores for this particular quarter, and overall it's already opened 20 stores in the 9 months of FY20 as against 12 in the previous financial year, and a total of 21 in the previous in FY19. So positive, very strong earnings coming in from Avenue Supermarts.
Okay, lots of key stocks in news and some result newsmakers as well. We can't wrap up without a slice of a brokerage activity as well, Shefali.
Well, yes, there are a couple couple of brokerage calls, so I'll focus on one right now, which is AU Small Finance Bank. Axis Capital has initiated coverage on the same with an ad rating and a target price of 930 rupees a piece. And there are a couple of factors working for them and are likely to continue working for them. One of them being high growth potential in all of its three verticals. Wheels, that is the auto lending business, MSME lending and mortgages as well, where it has a dominant presence. Other than that, strong management pedigree, gradual build-up of liabilities that is likely to add to the return ratios of the bank, and no regulatory changes and a likely move towards universal banking will open up more opportunities for them as and when they keep on adding more products to their portfolio. Secured lending will likely result in controlled credit costs for them, and they have one of the best-in-class asset qualities with gross NPA ratio of 2% over cycles, which according to them is one of the best in the industry. So those are some of the factors working for the bank.
Well, we'll watch out for this one as well. Thanks a lot for that, Shefali. Well, so many stocks to choose from. Avinash, let me ask you about Edelweiss. The stock corrected about 9%. The management has given its side of the story as well. Do you believe that they'll remain an overhang on the stock, or could it see some bottom buying?
No, I think, Neeraj, we could see some amount of buying coming in because the management has clarified that there's nothing to worry, and post the clarification, our sense is that the stock could possibly see a reasonably good bounce in today's markets. And our sense is that, the company has actually de-risked its business model quite significantly. From being a pure institutional broker, it now has several other verticals which actually contribute. And our sense is that, at these levels, if somebody wants to take a longer term call within the NBFC space, this is definitely a quality player which could deliver on the numbers. I think in the short term, the deal from Hisar Steel is going to actually ramp up the December quarter numbers. So all in all, I think it definitely seems to be a good buy, provided one has a slightly longer term kind of time frame.
Okay, that's on Edelweiss. Stocks at 106 right now. Let's see whether Rashesha's clarification has any impact on the stock in the morning's trade. Aditya Agarwala, technical research analyst at Yes Securities, he's joining us right now on the show with his views as well. Aditya, the important part being that the last 10 or 11 sessions and the decline that the index has seen has been rescaled in just a matter of 3 trading sessions. Are you concerned about the pace of this recovery, or that actually substantiates the structure that this move is better off compared to the last?
So I would agree with the fact that the move that we've seen in the last 3 trading sessions actually accentuates the fact that there's enormous strength in the market at the moment. And given the fact that from levels of 12,000 we scaled new highs in a matter of 3 days, says that bulls are in total control of the market, and it's a matter of time before we hit levels of 12,400 on the index. So my sense is if index sustains above 12,300 in trade today, we wouldn't be too far off from levels of 12,400 on the index. So one can actually look to get into the markets again long. So last week I was quite bullish on the markets. I said that markets should hit levels of 12,300. My sense is now if it sustains above 12,300, we're looking at a target of 12,400 with the stop loss at 12,251. Should definitely take a look at taking long positions in the market.
All right, so above 12,300, today's session, at least in the SGX, which is now actually strengthened a bit more. We're now up almost 0.4%, 52 points higher on the SGX Nifty. So we'll wait and watch how we scale those levels as well. What about individual stocks at today?
So I've got a couple of recommendations. One is a Mahindra. Auto stocks have turned up from after a sustained down move that those stocks had witnessed. Mahindra is one of those stocks which is actually looking attractive on the charts. It's broken out from a consolidation after a sustained down move with a double bottom on the weekly charts and a positive divergence on the RSI. So that is that there is uptrend which is due in the stock and which should follow through in the coming trading sessions. So one can look to buy Mahindra at current levels of 546 for a target of 570 with a stop loss at 532. The second stock is a sell recommendation on Manappuram. Futures can be sold. Stock has broken down from a trendline support. There is enormous weakness at the upper end of the range, and RSI has started forming negative divergence. So that tells that the bulls are losing momentum. Bears can actually chip in at current levels. So one should look to go short at current levels of 173 for a target of 164 with a stop loss at 178.
Avinash, your take on Avenue Supermarts now and the results that came out. Aside from that, the pace of store additions, I think 20 stores that they've opened in the first 9 months, matching up to last year, but would you have rather seen a slightly more paced up approach?
My guess is I think the markets were, the kind of performance which came out Devina was definitely a tad better than what the street expected. Obviously, the bottom line was aided by lower tax cut, but if you look at the overall EBITDA improvement, a good 31% improvement on a 24% growth in top line, and obviously margins have improved. So I would believe that the markets would obviously look at it as a moderate kind of performance, rather not a very bad performance. But I think what comes out post by March 2020, because the OFS is now going to be a critical offer. I think the management has indicated that by March 20 they would be diluting their stake. So I think markets would be keenly looking at this development. But overall, I think within the given macro scenario, I think this performance definitely is very strong. And obviously, I think I would not be surprised that hopefully once macros improve further, we could see a stronger top line and bottom line growth.
Okay, we will watch out for Avenue Supermarts in the session today as well. Mind you, it's not a cheap stock, and therefore the brokerage view on this one is very divided. While there are some who believe that there is near-term positivity, if indeed this fundraising or the promoter selling serves as a bit of a technical trigger, Morgan Stanley on its note says that they believe that their target is sub 1600, closer to 1520 or thereabouts, or 1500 or thereabouts. So the street is divided on what the stock can do. There's no division, Devina, I think, on the valuation, because yes, it is expensive. The question only is, can it stay expensive or can it correct, and whether this fundraising activity for Avenue Supermarts could lead to a bit of overhang in the near term. So I think that is something that people would likely watch out for.
Or that even if it does come off, it will be quickly bought into. Because the stock, for some time now has been, I think, a favorite.
Yeah, actually, Devina is right. Usually, when the stock corrects, the stock tends to see some quick buying as well. Ruchit Jain, technical analyst at Angel Broking, joins us on the show. Ruchit, we'll get to your index view in a bit, but since we are talking about Avenue Supermarts, just wondering if indeed the stock shows any kind of a reaction, what are the support levels that you would watch out for?
Yeah, very good morning to everyone. Neeraj, if we see last 6 or 7 months, the stock has been in an uptrend. We have seen a good high top, high bottom structure before till the month of December. Till the month of September. Now, since October 2019, the stock has consolidated in this range of 1750 to 1950. This 200-point range has been there. Now, on a weekly or monthly time frame, this consolidation just seemed to be a time-wise correction, because we have not seen any kind of higher volumes whenever prices have corrected in this consolidation phase. So I think if we see any kind of reaction or the stock correcting a bit, then around 1750, the 1750, 1740 range, the stock would again find a good support and again show some bounce back from there.
Right. Ruchit, Aditya believes that if you get an opportunity where the Nifty is above 12,300, it's a good time to buy. What's your sense?
Yes, even we have the same view, more or less. If we look at the markets during last week, in last 3 trading sessions on Wednesday after the gap down opening, we have seen a V-shaped recovery. The recovery has also been supported by broader market participation. And if you look at some of the options data, last 2 weekly expiry series, we had seen 12,300 call option always at the highest amount of open interest and significant open interest, about 35-40 lakhs. But in this series, so far, this is not the case. 12,300 call writing is not that aggressive. So we believe that this up move should continue, and we should see levels around 12,400, 450 range quite soon. So over here, we are recommending to go long on 12,250 call option, keeping stock below 26 for near-term target around 160 to 170. And I have a couple of stock buy recommendations as well. More from the mid-cap space, since mid-caps are showing outperformance compared to large caps. Tata Power is one of the stock where we have buy recommendation, probably a breakout from a consolidation phase, and also the stock on the long-term charts is trading near its good support area. So one can go long on Tata Power for short-term with stock below 56.5 for target of 63. And Finolex Cables among the mid-cap space is what we have recommended on Friday's trading session. The stock after a correction now seem to be geared up for resuming its high degree uptrend. With the stock below 394, one can buy around Friday's closing for target around 452.
Okay, there are some stocks that you need to keep a track of. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the other names within the real estate pocket. Friday as a session was decent for the real estate space. You got the Nifty Real Estate Index also ending on a positive note. What would you do here? Any of the names? Would you go in for the smaller ones like an Ajmera Realty and the likes, or would you go for the larger players?
So I'll stick to larger ones, Devina. So looking at DLF, definitely tops the list. Stock has actually come off quite significantly from the lows of 140, 134. So there was this day when witnessed that sharp downside on DLF. From that point of time, if you look at the chart, stock has witnessed an enormous run up in the price movement. And Friday's session was a strong close for the stock. My sense is stock is definitely headed higher to levels of about 300 to about 272 with an immediate resistance at 272. One can actually look to go long on DLF, even on a slight dip above 1.5%. One should look to go long on DLF for first target of 170 and then the next target of 300.
Well, speaking of real estate, our special segment Bloomberg Edge today speaks about a real estate stock. Yash Upadhyay joins us. Remember, Bloomberg Edge is the segment wherein we tell you about the pattern that the Bloomberg terminal has thrown up on a stock. And Yash, it's SOBA that we're talking about today.
That's right, Neeraj. So we are looking at SOBA, and it has managed to break above a critical level, which is of the trender mark. And with that, it has managed to flip the trender color from the negative line that we've seen for over from the August of last year to now, and has managed to cross above that mark substantially on the back of its large move that we saw on Friday. Now, let's first try and look at how the trender indicator works and basically what it does. So the trender is, like I mentioned, a proprietary Bloomberg indicator, and it uses the average true range for the purpose of generating a buy as well as a sell signal, and also helps you manage your stop loss. How do you interpret it? You go long when the trender line changes its color from red to green, and you go short when it changes its color from green to red. When does this color change happen? Basically, it happens when the price moves above the mark of the trender, and that is what we've seen as far as SOBA is concerned. So if you take a look at the move on Friday, we saw the stock close higher by almost 2.5%, with the volumes too being substantially higher, almost 6 times its 30-day average. And with that, it has managed to take out the mark of trender, which is at 409. The stock closed at 415, which means that we have seen the positive crossover as far as the trender is concerned.
How well has this worked in the past, Yash?
Devina, all 3 times that the trender indicator has been triggered to positive, we've seen the stock run up by as much as 8.5% over the next 1 month period.
All right, that's a decent return for a month. Thanks very much, Yash, for that. Avinash, real estate?
I think it should be a selective kind of a stock-specific kind of approach. Our sense is that players like SOBA, or for that reason, typically companies which are less leveraged on the balance sheet, I would be better bets. I think clearly the real estate market still continues to show a lot of exhaustion, and especially companies from north have typical problems of excess inventories in the system. I would believe that it's going to be a time before one could expect a very decent upside from these stocks. But yes, from a longer term point of view, hopefully once liquidity improves and the consumer sentiment takes off, I would believe that players like SOBA could do well. In fact, the numbers which came in, the volume sales have been much better than what the street expected. So I would believe that these are stocks which typically have to be taken from a longer term point of view. From the short term, these typically are trading bets and probably give more momentum kind of upsides to traders.
All right. Some of the banks then, and we've got to watch out for IndusInd Bank today. What's your sense on what could come out from IndusInd Bank in terms of results, and whether there'll be any change in commentary on those accounts which they have refused to categorize as stressed accounts for the last 2 quarters?
No, I think my sense is the markets would obviously like to know what has been the stress level in the current scenario, and obviously the categorization has been a topic of discussion. Our sense is that markets would obviously look at the overall NPA number, whether it has increased compared to the previous quarter, and I think if it doesn't happen and they are able to sustain these levels, our sense is that the markets would obviously look at the kind of commentary which the management would put out for the next quarter as well as for the next financial year. Our sense is that within the given scenario, IndusInd Bank definitely looks better positioned, despite the fact that their exposure to the commercial vehicle segment is pretty large, and there was some amount of stress and slowdown indicated last time. So our sense is that numbers could be moderately better, but I think the outlook and the growth numbers forward would obviously drive the stock going forward.
Well, we'll watch out for some of the other names as well. Tata Global, Metropolis are some of the stocks which hit fresh highs for themselves. Motilal Oswal as a stock did really well for itself too. And do watch out for the insurance companies. The AP data that came out for the month of December was quite telling, especially for the private ones, the likes of Hdfc Life, which 46% growth on monthly AP numbers is nothing to scoff at on that base, Devina.
Yeah, and your conversation, I think with Vibha, she seems to be in a very comfortable and confident spot right now with regards to future growths as well.
Yeah, and almost everybody seems to be doing well. So maybe some private insurers could be an interesting names to monitor right now. We'll get to the fundamental conversation in just moments from now with that. But Aditya, okay, let's talk about HDFC Life because that's fundamentally shown the best December performance. How does it look like on the charts from a trade perspective?
If I purely go by the charts, it's not looking that attractive. 640 has been acting as a stiff resistance for the stock. In fact, it's made a double top at levels of 640, and from there, stock has actually cooled off. So I'd be more comfortable close to about 600 or 580. If it corrects to levels of 580, 600, then I'll be more inclined towards going long on HDFC Life. On the flip side, if it closes above 640, then that will be a trigger because then it will be crossing its double top mark. Then that will be a trigger to go fresh long on the stock. For the time being, I'll avoid going long on HDFC Life.
All right, it's a 6:23. Let's see how it opens up in pre-open. 23 seconds left to go for markets to kickstart. SGX Nifty is pointing towards a positive start, about 0.4% higher. Give up a bit, few points here and there, but it's still looking okay. Hong Kong is still trading with gains of closer to 1%, while China almost flat, but looks like it's flipping into the green. Watch out for Infosys, the big one there at pre-open. Nifty opens positive about 1/3%, but a lot of dilly-dally. You'll wait for these prices to consolidate. Sensex has got a 1.5% pop. Individual stocks now. You've got Infosys right at the top there. The first stick indicative of an 8% pop. May not stick, but we'll watch out for that one. Then you've got Wipro too now. All of the IT names starting to get a bit more active. Eicher Motors is up about 2.78%. Z at 269. UPL 1% higher. Bharti Infratel. Then you've got HDFC Limited. I think Infosys has cooled off completely. You've got it higher by closer to 1.3. More realistic number now for Infosys. Bajaj Finserv, Coal India, Vedanta, Hero MotoCorp are some of the other gainers. Big loser today is Yes Bank, and that's down about 9% in the session this morning. Tata Motors too is looking weak, 1.9% under. Reliance Industries down 1%. Maruti Suzuki at 72.65 pre-open, and Titan gives back a bit more, but that is just 0.25% or so. So no big change on Titan, but it's in the red, about 11.52. The currency strengthens a bit more. Remember, Friday's close was somewhere around 70.91. We're at 70.80. Some positivity coming out from the IIP numbers. That's showed expansion this month. So you've got that reflecting in the currency as well. We wait and watch as to what the bond yields do in just a few moments.
Yeah, well, just 2 or 3 names that I want to highlight. Avenue Supermart should come up on your screen once again if we can bring it up. That stock, the numbers optically look okay, the bottom line numbers in particular because of the tax cuts, and let's see if the street rewards this. 1950 is the tick. Let's wait and watch if that lasts. Motilal Oswal is the other one which knocked on the doors of 52-week highs in Friday's trade. Big surge there. Polycab is the other one which surged in a big fashion. Let's see what that one is doing in the session today as well. Nudged about 1,020 or thereabouts. So 2 or 3 very interesting names, and what seems to be doing well is HCC on that on the plan that has been submitted. Maybe that has a flash reaction. Don't quite know how to really debate upon this. So let's wait and watch how this one does. And lastly, Edelweiss see some sanity today, but these are early days as yet. Let's wait and watch what happens during the course of the day. 3.77% higher for now. Okay, now 5% lower as well. So very, very choppy is Edelweiss. It's changing the bat of an eyelid. Let's wait and watch how this one carries on during the course of the day. Should be an interesting stock to monitor.
Max Financial also actually. Today is flat, but last week saw that huge knock that brought the stock down to levels of closer to 510, even sub that. Today has seen marginal recovery of sorts. But Avinash, a quick take on what's been happening here.
I think clearly, I think within the insurance verticals, I think this is one of those companies which has not delivered and which has been underperforming. I would believe that, I think the markets are probably looking at some sort of fresh funding and some new strategic investor coming in here. And obviously, the last week performance was not, great. Our sense is that, within the insurance pack, Devina, if one has to take a call, I think it should be on the frontline names like an SBI Life or typically an ICICI Pru. These are names which our senses would deliver better value, and I think that is probably the reason the markets are not very happy with Max Financial. And typically, I think it's not a stock which has actually delivered good financial returns, for investors.
Okay. We'll come back to our conversation on individual stocks as well, but Shefali Malik, she's joining us right now with the brokerage calls of the day. Shefali.
Well, UBS has initiated nodes on a couple of financial entities, starting with their node on Bajaj Finance. They've initiated with a neutral call with a target price of 4,600 rupees per share. And they're saying that in last 10 years, FY9 to 19, their loan book has grown at a CAGR of about 46%. And that kind of loan book, even though it becomes a higher base now, but nonetheless, the strong growth is likely to continue for them. So they expect customer growth in cross-selling to drive FY19 to 24 loan CAGR of 30%. That is over next 5 years, and the fee income that is growing faster than the loans. We saw that even in the annual report that the fee income is becoming a very strong component of their overall earnings. Operating leverage to aid EPS growth from here on. They expect the credit cost to normalize at 1.7% over FY21 to 22, and gross NPAs to rise marginally to about 1.8% in FY20 to 22 due to overall slowdown in the economy. They've also initiated a note on L&T Finance with a buy call and a target price of about 165 rupees a piece. And they're saying that the risks on infrastructure projects have come off with Andhra Pradesh government, which will now be honoring the contracts when it comes to the renewable contracts. And the execution will remain the key for real estate, which still remains a high risk segment. Low competitive intensity and new initiatives to support the loan growth for the company from here on, and easing liquidity to reduce the cost of funds. Other than that, counter-cyclical provisions to limit the credit costs, and it's the stable asset quality which is likely to drive free rating for L&T Finance from here on.
Okay, we'll watch out for some of these financials as well. They may not be top draw today, but you got to watch out for them. Never know what happens to some of these stocks. Thanks a lot for that, Shefali. We will monitor these names. What else? Infosys likely to start off well, because the first 5 minutes is early days, maybe 3 more minutes left and things could change, but may trade about 3.5% higher. So that is the big one to monitor in the session today. Do watch out. 764 or 765 and counting. Ruchit, if it starts off this high, would you trade it?
If we look at historically, then in the month of October, when we had seen a huge gap down opening in the stock, that was the levels around 760, 765. Post that, we have seen some gradual recovery, but still that 765 levels have not been crossed. And today, if it opens right around this level, then the follow-up move in first half an hour would be more important. So if we see any kind of sustained move above 765, so for at least first half an hour, then I would like to take a fresh long entry in that stock, because that would be the level where post where we would see some good amount of short covering as well as new fresh long build-up could be seen. So I think I would wait for first half an hour before entering into the stock. If 765 is held on for first half an hour, then certainly I think the stock would come into the momentum for rest of the day.
Maybe I wonder, and Avinash, maybe you can come in as well. I mean, one thing is Infosys individual tailwinds, but two, the other point about how their commentary around their results showed that BFSI had some weakness. Yeah. And could that continue to weigh in on the others? Because typically, if a company comes out with good numbers, the other companies also benefit. Infosys, TCS used to be poster boys. Can this time around be different because of the weakness in BFSI, which is a key vertical for the other IT names? That's a key question too, to be answered.
Yeah, Avinash, what do you think?
No, I think clearly this is a valid point, because BFSI is a very large vertical for them, and hopefully, if it happens on a company specifically related to Infosys, then the markets would not shrug it off as a worrisome factor. But if it takes up as a trend, then I think it's going to be a significant kind of headwind for the entire IT pack, because most of the larger IT players do cater to the BFSI space in a large way. And I think clearly, Neeraj, if you see the EBITDA margins, I think compared to the December quarter, the expectation was that the sequential quarter, the expectation was that the weak currency could actually aid EBITDA margins, but that was not given so. And I think probably this BFSI headwind, if it doesn't deliver beyond March, then I think it's going to be a little worrisome for Infosys as well as the larger frontline players like maybe a TCS or an HCL Tech, which also have a large ticket size coming in from the BFSI vertical.
What's your sense on Z? Do you feel now that the quarterly results become all the more important?
I think, Devina, the pledging factor overhang is now completed, but I think there have been several issues related to, investments made by Z Entertainment into other group companies. And I think until the market gets a complete comfort as to whether these intergroup transactions are now cleared, I would believe that there have been issues like a lot of money has been given to Dish TV, and typically the markets would not like some sort of further negative surprises coming in on this front. So I would believe that the price definitely looks attractive from a long-term point of view, but the markets would possibly look at clarity from the management, assuming the last first half the operating cash flows were negative. That itself was a very significantly negative factor which the markets took it. So I would believe that it's better to wait for maybe another 1 or 2 quarters, and only once these related intergroup issues get cleared, then only one could see a significant re-rating on the stock.
Okay, we've come to the close of pre-open, so we've sort of frozen in on a gain of 1/3% on the Nifty 50. That's at 12,296. I remember the intraday high that we need to scale is 12,311 or plus. Nifty Bank just 10-50% higher at pre-open. Important to see, what the likes of SBI do, because after going right down under 310, it's managed to have a decent comeback in a matter of 2 or 3 trading sessions, 3 or 4 trading sessions rather. 334 on SBI. Ruchit, what would the take be on the counter?
I think it's a good buying opportunity. In fact, in SBI, if you look from short to medium term perspective, we have seen a good time-wise correction. The entire month of November and December, the prices have consolidated in the range of 310 to 345, 350. And now the volumes in last 3 trading sessions from the low of 310 has also been quite good. So I think the stock would resume its uptrend once this time-wise correction is over. Keeping a stock below 310 from a positional perspective, one should buy this stock for targets around 370, which were the previous all-time highs for the stock.
Okay, we are minutes away from market open. Let's tell you all that you need to know to stay ahead in trade today. First up, Infosys has raised its FY20 revenue growth guidance. It also does not find any merit in allegations against CEO Salil Parekh. The stock likely to start off 3% higher.
Yes, bank will now raise 10,000 crore rupees through various methods. It has also rejected the $1.2 billion funding offer from Arvind Singh Briak.
Third quarter results of Avinash Supermarts met estimates. Top line grew 24%, while lower taxes aided the 53% profit growth.
Individual annual premium equivalent growth in December for insurance players was 16%. Hdfc Life saw a APE rising 46%, while ICICI Prudential and SBI Life grew 11 and 17% respectively.
Edelweiss informs exchanges about communication from the Enforcement Directorate. Says no company has any transaction with Capstone Forex.
And lastly, one of HUDCO's borrowing agencies with a principal outstanding of 726 crore rupees cleared its dues on January 9th.
And showing in the way the stock is reacting as well, about 1.5% higher in trade. So no doubt that it would have reacted, but nothing too dramatic. So we'll start off okay. Just 2 or 3 stocks on which I would want some technical views. Any one of them, Aditya. Edelweiss is starting off 5% lower if you have a view there particularly, or maybe Aurobindo Pharma on which there is a query, or IEX on which there is a query.
Talking of Edelweiss, there is weakness, and looking at the massive sell-off that we witnessed on Friday's trading sessions, I'm only surprised that if it continues lower to levels of either 80 or probably can come back to levels of 70 as well.
Can charts predict accurately in times like these wherein there is an event-based activity?
Not really, Neeraj, because but looking at the way that the stock has been moving, I would not want to get into long on the stock. I'll be more inclined towards taking a short position, or if I'm holding on to my long positions, I would actually look to exit from my trade, because these are not looking these are not good signs. Stock closed 10% lower, and today we are witnessing a 5% gap down opening for the stock. So those are signs of weakness for the stock, and my sense is it will continue to slide lower as the day progresses.
Quickly, a smaller name, HCC, a news-driven stock, but is up about 10% at pre-open.
So we've seen, Devina, with these stocks of late, these stocks have been buzzing. GMR saw a massive up move. HCC could also follow suit. I'll be more inclined if it sustains above 11 mark. 11.3 is the opening tick that we're witnessing. If it sustains above 11, it can see the further leg of buying and can take the stock higher to levels of 13 as well. So one can actually look to take long if sustains above 11 with stop loss at 10 for targets of 13.
Okay. Chennai Petro is the other one. Today is also up at pre-open 4%. Friday's session was locked up on upper circuit. Ruchit, is there a trade open here on Chennai Petro?
think there has been a long underperformance in this stock, if you look at Friday's session, the up move was also supported by very good volumes. So I think it's just that the risk-reward ratio after this sharp up move on Friday is not that much favorable. I would wait for some sort of declines towards 135, 134 range. If the stock comes over there, then one can initiate fresh longs with stop below 123 and expect near-term targets around 154, 155.
All right, Avinash, quickly, one stock that you're really convinced about.
No, I think within the cash segment, railway infrastructure stocks should do well. And I think within this space, we like KEC International. I think our sense is that the Q3 numbers and overall FY20 should be a lot better. And I think the order book has increased significantly. Possibly, one could see some further L1 orders getting crystallized. So I think here one could possibly look at this weakness as a good opportunity. Our sense is that the budget also could possibly offer a decent kind of news flow for these companies.
All right, we leave it at that, Avinash. Thank you very much for joining in. Quick top calls from both our technical experts, 10 seconds each. Let's start off with you.
So I'll go in for Hindustan Unilever. Stock witnessed a good up move in late trade on Friday session, and if I take a look at the FMCG index, that too is showing some sort of a comeback as far as the bulls are concerned. So I'll go long on Hindustan Unilever with a target of 2030 to about 2100 on the upside. This is more of a positional trade. One can place a stop somewhere around 1900.
Ruchit, 10 seconds.
Finolex Industries have to continue with that since mid caps are showing outperformance. One can go long with stock below 394 for near-term target of 452.
Gentlemen, stay on. We'll take in opening thoughts from you post-market open, but the markets are likely to start off well. The question is, can they build on and can banks participate in what seems to be a flat start for the Bank Nifty? Yes, it is a flat start for the Bank Nifty, but the Sensex and the Nifty have done well. I reckon courtesy Infosys and maybe a couple of other names. 0.4% for the Nifty and the Sensex. Actually, now even banks are participating, so it's not a bad start really. Pretty much in line with what maybe one of the Asian indices was doing as well. Let's wait and watch if this continues. The mid cap and the small cap indices should also come up on your screen. 0.5% for the mid cap 100, BSE small cap about 0.25%. A couple of names which are interesting to monitor. Bring up the heat map up on the screen and let's see what's moving and what's not. So first, on the upside, Infosys up 2.5%. So good start to the trading day, almost 3% for Infosys. It's duly reacting. What else is doing well? Bajaj Finance has gotten that brokerage upgrade, and maybe that's the other name which is doing well. And some of the other banks like Axis and ICICI are also doing well. So ICICI Bank is probably aiding the index move as well. There is Bharti Infra, Sun Pharma, Tata Steel, all of which are up about 1%. Grasim is up about 0.75%. Mahindra and Mahindra, it was a buy call today, up about 0.5%. And a lot of green on the screen generally. Very little red, but yes, Bank. Well, the street says no to the stock today, 6.5% lower, and it has been weak for a better part of last week too. They've rejected one of the key offers. They'll consider another one. They might consider some fundraising as well. It's not a happy hunting ground for Yes Bank. Tata Motors is down about 1% too. DRL and TCS are the other ones, but Yes Bank clearly the principal culprit, down about 7%, and Infosys is the principal mover, up about 2.5%. Very quickly, the broader end of the spectrum, couple of pockets. One, stocks which are doing very well in Friday's session too, hitting about new highs, 52-week highs or life highs, and should come up on your screen, the likes of Metropolis, Motilal Oswal and some of the others. Maybe those are doing well. And Avenue Supermarts is the other one which should be in focus today, simply because of the kind of gains that it has had. So look at this, Metropolis up about 0.5%. Motilal Oswal should also come up on your screen. And Avenue Supermarts up about 2.5% on the back of some very strong results. Motilal takes a bit of a backseat. Devina, what are you seeing?
We'll start off with a few movers, then we'll talk about the losers. We spoke about Chennai Petro doing well on Friday's session. The follow-through has happened today, about 4% higher. Parag Milk Foods over the last 7 days has gained 7%, including today's 3.5% move that the stock has seen. You've got the likes of Den Networks, which is up 5%, and HCC 8.25% higher. Indoco Remedies is up 3.33%. You've got Jindal Stainless, ITD Cement. These are all some of your bigger gainers within the Nifty 500. Talking about a few more names then before we move on and get in our market guests again. Let's look at the losers. Reliance Naval, Aarti Industries, Suzlon Energy, your usual suspects there. Edelweiss at 104, South Indian Banks down 1%. You've got Bajaj Electrical, Startup Motors, DVR. So all of these names. Lupin is down about 0.75% as well. So watch out for all of those names. Remember, there were that update that came in from Lupin with regards to 2 observations there, Form 483, that took place, the inspection that took place in its plants. Indiabulls Ventures, Dish TV are also trading under in today's session.
Well, interesting moves to start off the day. The Sensex is now up nearly 0.6%, and yes, banks are participating. Save for yes, almost everything else is doing well. IndusInd Bank has recouped a larger part of its losses, so that's the interesting one I want to start off with. Aditya, you want to come in on IndusInd Bank? Had a weak Friday, but it's bouncing back today in line with the markets. What do the charts indicate?
It's more of a consolidation Neeraj out here. For long, we've seen the stock oscillate between levels of 1450 to about 1550 on the upside. So my sense is it will approach the upper end of the range, which is 1550. So if somebody is looking for an intraday trade, probably they can look to go long with the stop loss at 1480 for a target of 1550 on IndusInd Bank. If it closes beyond 1550, then you can carry forward the trade. If it fails to close beyond 1550, my sense is it will again claw back to the lower end of the range, which is 1450.
Okay. So that's IndusInd Bank. Let's see, the results are tomorrow, and therefore it makes this stock a very, very interesting one to monitor in the session today as well as tomorrow. The one which is doing very well, Ruchit, the last 2 sessions, is Tata Global Beverages, as also Metropolis, but Tata Global in particular. 345 now and counting at fresh highs. Had a big day in Friday's session too. How does it look on the charts?
Definitely the trend, Neeraj, for the stock is positive, and it's not only last 2 trading sessions. If you look this stock in this post after the month of March, where the stock had formed a low of around 175, it has been consistently forming this high top high bottom structure, and up moves have also been supported by good volumes. So in Friday's session, if you see, although the stock had hit an all-time high, still the volumes are good, so which indicates that even at current levels the buying interest is there for the stock. As per reciprocal retracement theory, the target projections are coming somewhere around 365, 370 for short term. So I think yes, the stock would continue its up move. With stock below 327, one can even initiate fresh longs here for targets around 365.
The other one, I just want to see what Rain Industries is up to. The last 2 or 3 sessions, it's actually had a pretty decent move in today's session, up another 0.5% or 1%. It's a very difficult stock. It's very volatile, Aditya, in its own way. But on the charts, how does Rain look?
It's come off, Neeraj, from the lows. It's formed a rounding bottom, and from there it's broken out. And Friday's volume was definitely encouraging from what you're saying. I'm also looking at the charts. 125, which was the high on Friday, is a minor resistance. So if it crosses 125, then I'll be more inclined to take a fresh long on the stock. Probably stock can test levels of 150 to about 160 if somebody holds on to it for about a month.
I think Edelweiss has moved into the green now, so 2.5% higher for Edelweiss at 108.4. Polycab's doing well too, and that is up 1.33%, so at 1,040 now for Polycab, and that one continues to go from strength to strength. I know data points, Ruchit, are less with regards to giving a technical call, but the pace of the move and just how the stock has moved since it's listed in April, does it give you some amount of comfort to go long on the stock?
I think as far as the structure is there, after listing we had seen a long consolidation. In April 2019 we saw the listing, and from April till August the prices had consolidated in a range. Since the month of August, we have seen this high top, high bottom structure on the daily chart, which is still getting continued. And till this immediate low of 940, 950 is now intact, I think the stock would continue its up move. Yes, since looking at this limited data points, giving a target projection is very difficult in this stock. But technically, trailing stop loss method is one which one can follow in the stock. So till we don't see any kind of signs of reversal, one can definitely trade with a positive bias.
Well, and just keep in mind that a bunch of brokerages are very bullish on this one. I mean, most names that I see, there's a initiating coverage report from Spark Capital on the 24th of December, which speaks about how Polycab is expected to deliver a healthy growth in the foreseeable future because it's a market leader in the cable segment, and that segment itself is still expanding. So all of that might lead to the stock do well. Their target is about 1173, but that's a 12-month target. Keep that at the back of your mind. And again, on these numbers, it's not a terribly expensive stock. I mean, at 1173 would probably trade at about 18 times FY21 earnings. At the current price, it probably trades at about 16 times or thereabout, which doesn't make it having a significant premium. So you've got to keep that at the back of your mind. Okay, so that's on Polycab. My final question, Aditya, any stock that after open that stands out and you would trade?
So again, Neeraj, FMCG stocks are definitely looking good. There's a good short covering rally which should come through in most of the FMCG stocks. I just talked about in this, Hindustan Unilever. Look at Dabur and Kolpal. They both are looking extremely strong on the charts. 1.5% uptick for Dabur. My sense is it will continue to levels of 485, 490. One can definitely look to go long even at current levels for a target of 485, 490. Kolpal hasn't moved yet, but it should move as the day progresses. Targets out here will be 1500 to about 1560 on the upside. Go long and Colgate-Palmolive with a stop loss at 1450 on the downside.
All right. We leave it at that, gentlemen. Thank you so very much for joining us, Ruchit, as well as Aditya.
Pleasure.
All right, and the markets are going strong. So we've got a new record high in place. And Nifty is at 12,337 now, up about 0.6% plus. With the strong going, we're going to take a very short break, but coming up next, we'll discuss the impact of the MMDR Act amendment on steelmakers with the Farmer Steel Secretary, Mr. P.K. Mishra. Also joining us will be Vikas Khemani.